Hello, my beautiful guys and dolls, and welcome to an episode of Before the Curtain. I'm your host, Abbie Campbell, and we will be diving into the world of live entertainment. We will uncover what it takes to put on a show, and artists will reveal their stories of how their creations went from idea to reality. We are determined to uncover everything that happens before the curtain. Our guest today is nothing short of astounding. She is one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever known and has experience that will absolutely blow you away. She's a dancer, singer, actor, aerialist, contortionist, and choreographer, working for companies like TMU Events, Interlace Productions, Dragon Talent Group, and Buzz, just to name a few. She's taken the stage as a main stage dancer, specialty artist, and swing in After Dark at the Bellagio Mayfair Supper Club. She was also a company member of Diavolo, a dancer and aerialist in Cherry Boom Boom, and played multiple roles as a dancer, aerialist, dance captain, rehearsal director, and swing in Particle Inc. Speed of Dark at the Luxor Casino. Her creative nature has led her to collaborate on amazing productions like the LA Philharmonic and Barry Edelstein's production of The Tempest, Cirque du Soleil, and From Vegas with Love. Wow, I promise I can read. She was the choreographer of the military tour, Miami residency and TV special of Pomp, Snow, and Circumstance, as well as the Denver residency of Cirque, Spirit of Christmas, and not to mention her collaborations with Carnival Cruises, On the Fly Pros, and her experience as an event coordinator at Area 15, and those are just the highlights. Currently, she is touring with Cirque du Soleil's OVO as the Red Spider and choreography artist coach, and she is also the artistic director of DMD, Dani Maloney Dance, which is why she is here today. On top of all of her greatness, she founded DMD in 2020. It is a non-profit dance company that produces both live performances and films and has achieved incredible accolades from multiple film festivals like the Lady Filmmakers Festival, Fetiges International Film Festival, and more. DMD also placed and ranked among the top 10 dance acts in the U.S. at the World of Dance Championship in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, guys and dolls, I'm so honored we have her here today. Please help me welcome to the mic the wonderful, the incredibly, immensely talented Dani Maloney.
Ooh, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, DMD. When did DMD first become an idea?
Wow. Okay, so I went to school at Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia, and we had comp classes because it wasn't just dance, it was dance and choreography in order to get your degree. So I started with like our regular choreography classes, but I always like wanted to expand on the ideas. So I ended up making like a multimedia project for like just one of our comp assignments. It was like way extra, but because of that, I was like, oh, I could maybe take this to choreography festivals and such. So I applied for a couple and we got into one, and they were like, tell us your company name. And I was like, And I looked at my dancers. I was like, what do you guys think about this? And they were like, DMD, Dani Maloney Dance. And it accidentally just became that. So that's like how we registered for our first like choreography. Whoa. For our first choreography festivals before I actually incorporated us. So we ended up doing like some random festivals just as me choreographing before we got incorporated. But then the pandemic hit in 2020 and I had oodles of time on my hands. So I'm like, what do I do with all this time? So I decided to make a dance company. We got incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit. And yeah, we started from there with like full-blown company work.
And did any of the dancers that you started with originally carry over to that?
Yeah, Courtney Friedersdorf. So she and I went to college together, and she was one of the people that were like, we should name this TMD. So I still work with her today. There's another girl that was in college that did one project with us, Natalie D'Angelo. So yeah, some people from the OG before it actually existed. So yeah.
That's amazing. And what made you want it to be a nonprofit?
Most modern companies in the States are formulated as a nonprofit just because that's like the easiest way to secure funding. But also like contemporary dance companies, modern dance companies are just technically classified under 501c3s. So we're less of like corporate gig type of company. I'm more interested in making like evening length works and things like that. So it just is kind of the category that we make the most sense under.
And how would you say that DMD has evolved into something that you kind of always thought it was going to be?
I definitely thought I would do this later in my life. I always wanted to have my own group, my own company, but I did not expect it to happen simultaneously while I was still performing. But again, 2020, I was like, I got the time, let's do it, But it's been the biggest blessing because that's been my artistic outlet in Vegas ever since I moved here. And the people I get to work with are some of the most beautiful humans. And it's cool to be able to create with no restrictions. So a lot of times when you're brought in as a choreographer, it's a cool journey because like a director or producer will tell you exactly what they want and you create that, which is fun in its own regard. But it's really nice whenever I have like something I really want to say that I can just say it. You know, I can do my research, do my due diligence to make sure I say it properly, but like I don't have to get anyone else's approvals to say the things I want to say.
Right. And that's a massive weight lifted off your shoulders
For
instead
sure.
of feeling like you have to walk around eggshells. Has there been a lot of that experience in your journey as a choreographer? Because I know obviously DMD is not the one and only time you've ever choreographed because you have, again, loads of a resume, which is incredible. Has there been times prior?
I think the way I see the world is like all experiences are positive in their own right. They're just different. So I think what I have learned to practice whenever I'm doing different jobs is just to know what hat I'm wearing. So like with DMD, I know that I'm wearing the hat that I can do what I want to do and how I want to do it. But whenever I'm working for other people, which I do love to do as well, I just know that my goals are not priority. My essence of being on that job is to make someone else's dream come to life, which I love to do. I love to be like the logistics person. I love to be the choreographer for somebody, but it's just different. So it's an interesting experiment of unattachment. So if someone's like, hey, this is what I want, and you process that in your own way and create something, it may not be exactly what they want. And you have to be able to let that idea go to get to their end that they want to meet. That makes sense.
It does. And it's very interesting to me that you can have that non-attachment, but then also have such attachment to your own creative creations at DMD. And that kind of juxtaposition is really cool to know that you're, and I don't know if the word is humble enough or knowing your job maybe to give somebody what they want and then saving that kind of pride for your own stuff. Was that hard to learn?
I think it's a continuous practice because there's some days that I'm better at it than other days, whether that's because when you're in a week of production and by the 7th day you're exhausted, so you're a little shorter, not sure. But it's something I try to practice every day if I'm on a job that's not my own. It's like, it's interesting. It's like, how can I do my best job? And sometimes that's not doing what you want. Sometimes it's doing what the person who's employing you wants, you know? And something too that I really do care about in all of the spaces I'm in, whether it's my space or someone else, is making a safe space for artists. So that's something too that like I really try to put my stamp on. So like even when I'm under somebody else, it's like, how can I curate this space into a space that I believe in while making this person's hopes and dreams come true at the same time, you know? So it's interesting. I think I am less attached to my creative ideas in that setting than I am to my artist care and advocacy in that setting. That's what I really want to like cultivate whenever I'm working for other people.
And would you say that kind of motivation is more of the core for DMD?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, like I am really passionate about treating artists well and paying them and contracting them and giving them lunch breaks and proper warm-ups and all of that. It like matters to me. If I were to create everything that's in my brain all the time, we would be working 24/7, but I don't have the financial means to make that happen. So it's like I specifically contract people when I know that I can treat them well. If it's like I just have this great idea and I want to do it, I won't do it if I don't have the means to make sure that they're being compensated properly because it's our livelihood. So I believe that the second we start lessening how we treat the people that work for us, it's like a slippery slope. And I refuse to slide down that slope. I want to keep people happy, you know, because then they do better work for you. Yeah.
Take care of your employees and your employees will take care of you.
For sure.
And the business in more corporate terms, or I guess more everyday terms.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you maybe had experience in the opposite of that, in either you not getting treated well or seeing people not getting treated well. Because it sounds like with that experience, that again has become a very strong morality of yours.
Yeah, I think negative experiences are best teachers in some ways. So, you know, like the more you're around the block, you just experience different things. And I have seen in myself how I work when someone above me is like really on it and like really cares about me. And I've seen how I work when somebody is like not like giving me what I need. And of course, I try to put my best foot forward all the time. But like, imagine you're on a 12-hour gig and you have absolutely no food. How are you going to do your best work? You know? So I think that's important. And yeah, I'm sure we've all been in spaces where like the dancers are unhappy in some regard. And I believe energy is contagious. So if like I'm feeling really negative, I can bet that me spewing those feelings will make someone else feel really negative. And that's something I like really try to keep out of DMD. I like want people to be happy to be there. I want them to feel like they're excited to train and to make something new. And also like having a group of people that lift each other up. So say I have something in my personal life going on. I want to be in a room full of someone that's like full of people who are going to take care of me, you know? So I think that comes from the top. Attitude reflects leadership. So if the leader is there to take care of their people, the people are going to be happy to be there and take care of each other as well. And the work.
Absolutely. And as someone who has been in the room with you at DMD and has experienced DMD, I can say that you definitely do that. And I think anybody who has been a part of what you do can also absolutely say the same. Like, I would bet all my money on it, which isn't much, but I'd still bet all my money on it.
Incredible.
So we're going to jump around everywhere because, you know, artists. Where do you get your ideas or inspiration for DMD? Like creating new pieces?
Yeah, I think it depends. So most of the company pieces that I've set, I'd normally have something very specific I want to say, or I heard a song that like made me know what I want to say. So generally speaking, all the like the company pieces are very narrative driven. And for me, I love to believe art can create a better society. So a lot of times it has something to do with, you know, the betterment of humankind through dance. But also for like other works that I like to do, very musically driven. So sometimes I have an idea of a visual, but if I don't have music that I feel like complements that, or like a soundscape that complements that, it's hard for me to realize it. So I'm very, very, very musically driven, like to a fault sometimes. But with that being said, it does make like, I don't know. I think sometimes making choreography can be like a puzzle. So like say I wanted to make choreography and I wrote down a script and then I made movements for every single word on that script. Sometimes I'll do that if I feel like I'm so stuck in like the music box that I'm just doing the same moves. So like I'll literally create a monologue and I'll make a dance that basically mimes the monologue, and that's the choreography that I'll then put to the music, because otherwise I feel like I can like regurgitate the same movements and I want to keep growing as a choreographer as well. But yeah, very musically driven, very narrative driven. And then if I feel like I get stuck in my own box, I like create assignments for myself to make something different.
Oh, like what?
So yeah, one is doing scripts. I transpose things, like so say I made something standing, then I'll figure out how I can do that whole phrase on the ground instead. There's other ones, like sometimes I spell my name in different ways in my body and I'm like, this is choreography, and play with it that way. Yeah. Weird brain tricks, because otherwise, you know, you start doing your same movement pathways and it's like I feel like I'm seeing the same combo but to a different song. So there's different energy, but you're doing the same thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's actually so many of those games that I play. Or music visualization. So if I am like choreographing to this song, I'll put on a totally different song and I'll choreograph moves to it that like are supposed to be like making the music come to life. I'll memorize it and then I'll put it on this song instead to see if it makes something different.
I enjoy your creativity and getting out of the box and getting out of your head. I mean, you're using your head, but still like, you know, searching for more in your hunger to keep innovating. That's really cool. Has there ever been an experience where you had an idea or maybe didn't have the song, or had one but couldn't find the other piece? Or vice versa, even if it was a job that you did for someone else?
Yeah, I mean, well, sometimes when you do a job for somebody else, they give you a song that you're just like, ah, what am I supposed to do to this? So yes, and what I do with that is I'll put choreography on a song I like, and then I'll find out how to match it to this, and normally it ends up being interesting. Sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it's interesting. And I think to for like my own stuff, there's been times that it hasn't complemented each other perfectly, but then it made it evolve in an interesting way. So I think that's another interesting thing about creativity is like not being married to your ideas, because I believe that sometimes they evolve the way they're supposed to evolve, you know? So it's like if I were to like plan it so much, then maybe I'd put myself in a box, whereas like it was meant to breathe into a different way. Mm. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does make sense. And our conversation, I feel like, just started, but you have so much wisdom and such a higher perspective looking down on what you're doing. I feel like you have a very broad viewpoint of what you do and what you need to do and how you do it. Could you this might be a tough question, but could you think about maybe a job or a gig or an experience that really taught you that kind of wide perspective on what you do?
Okay, I might need to think about this for
That's
a second.
okay. You can take your time.
Okay, yes. So I think as a dancer, I've been in very intense spaces. So it's like normally really risky work, like for the body. And, you know, there's like normally circus elements involved and such. So I think another addition to that is a lot of times I was in the creation for those. So like it's different whenever someone tries a stunt and you know it's possible and then you learn the stunt versus when you're like, I'm going to jump off this giant structure and I'm going to hope it goes well. You know, there's like a different mindset behind that. So I think my unattachment began then, because it's like I tried a lot of things that I really hoped worked that really didn't. And some of them caused injuries. Some of them caused, you know, pause in a rehearsal because it was like, we have to reroute this whole idea. It's not going to work, you know? So I think it's easy because, you know, we are art in some regard. So it's easy to take that stuff personally. And it's like, no, it's creation. It's meant to be experimental. If we knew everything was going to work, there'd be no creativity. It would just be science, you know? It'd be just like, this is how it works. So I think that's when that idea began. But then also working as a choreographer for other people, I would notice when I would become emotionally invested in a way that was hindering the process. So it's like, if I thought I interpreted what the director said and I said it this way, but it's not what they wanted, and I'm fighting for my idea, it's actually hindering and slowing the process. Whereas if I just release that idea and try to make this one come to actualization, it would be more efficient. So again, it's a continuous process because we get attached to what we do in our work because we're human, but it's shown itself to me as a performer and as a creator. It's like when you become too attached, sometimes you slow things. So again, like going back to the reference, say I jumped off this structure and it didn't work well. So I'm like, no, I believe this will work. I do it 17 more times and it still doesn't work, you know? Whereas sometimes it does. So it's interesting because it's like finding that balance of when you really fight for something versus when you're like, I can release this, you know? So yeah. I think that's my complicated way of answering. It's a continuous practice, and sometimes I'm better at it than other times.
Because I was just about to ask that following question of like, how have you found that balance? Because some people say, well, at first you don't succeed, right? Try again. But at what point do you know, I gotta let it go?
Yeah. I think, okay, there's something that I say, and again, I don't know if any of this is real. It's just how I like keep myself happy every day.
Ignorance is bliss. Just let me tell myself this and I will be a better person, okay? Even if it's wrong.
It's like, this is how I keep myself afloat. I feel like when you don't know what you're supposed to do, it's because you're not supposed to know yet. And whenever you know, you know. So I believe a lot of times when I'm in the unknown in my life, I write it. And then like, I feel like life shows me in like a glowing sign when I'm supposed to make a choice, you know? And this kind of segues me into like, I'll tell a little bit of my story with Cirque. So it's like, I'm from a very small town, Pennsylvania, literally middle of nowhere. Absolutely middle of nowhere. You have to drive an hour to get to a movie theater. So,
oh God.
Yeah, the woods. And my first exposure to how you could work as a professional was with Cirque du Soleil because I went to a dance school an hour away as well. And during like our lunch breaks and stuff, they would play Cirque du Soleil on our little TV. So like I'd watch and I'm like, oh, wow, this is cool. And I always wanted to be a lizard in the circus. It was like my phrase. So did everything I could to become a professional. I auditioned for 14 schools because I needed to figure out how the industry worked. Got into one, literally won, and just really hit the ground running from there. Went to Shenandoah Conservatory, and I started auditioning for Cirque when I was a junior. I got databased in Phoenix, went through the whole 3-day audition, and then auditioned again years later in San Francisco, again in Las Vegas, again in Las Vegas. And that's not to count like the smaller calls that I did for them. So it was a really, really long process, but it was always like my goal, you know? So it's like, I need to fixate on this. It was a 9-year process of before I actually booked the job that I'm on now. And with that, though, it gave me my trajectory for my whole career. So it's like I wasn't working Cirque, but everything that inspired me about Cirque like drove me. So it's like I trained circus, I trained dance, I trained my choreography. I looked at this show and these apparatuses were in it. So I learned those apparatuses. And with that, my whole career took shape. It's like I wouldn't have had the career I had unless I had the drive to do Cirque. So it's interesting because if that wouldn't have happened, I still would have had this like beautiful career the whole time, you know? So it's interesting. I like to say we make plans and God laughs, you know, that. So I was like, I'm going to book this. Did I think it was going to take me 9 years? No, you know, no, I did not. And I didn't have any idea all the jobs it would give me. Like, because I wanted to do something like Cirque du Soleil, I booked Particle Inc., which is like a show that like set my soul on fire, you know? So it's interesting, I think, you know, with everything. It's like, when do you give up on an idea? Maybe it's not giving up on the idea, but it's being open to what the idea will bring to you. Because it's like, it may not be exactly what you think it looks like, but it's what it's meant to be, you know? So, yeah, I don't necessarily think it's about giving up. I think it's about being open.
That's a really good way to, again, shift the perspective of, as you were talking, I was thinking like, yeah, there's that open goal. And in order to get to that goal and you learn all of these tricks of the trade and end up still being open to other opportunities as you're still working on a goal. And I think sometimes that can be difficult to understand that I'm still working towards this goal, but still doing other things on the side, which is amazing how, again, that road can still bring you to where you want to be without you even realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also kind of thought was like, it's really cool that you were able to start creating so young and in your conservatory and keep that kind of spark. Was it difficult to start creating so young?
I mean, you know, when you look back at something you make years ago and you're like, oh,
who let me do that?
Yeah. I still feel that way. But it's cool because my brain was always the same. It was just how I learned how to interpret my brain with physicality that changed. So I feel like I developed my movement language more so later, but it was like my way of storytelling was always the same. So it's interesting when you like look back at that stuff, you're like, you can see the development, but also you can see where you were, like your core essence. And I am really thankful that I started choreographing that young because they're the people who taught me the tools. So like our choreography classes were basically like labs and they were like, you have this assignment. So I remember we had like an assignment that was music visualization and they basically like gave us a random song and we had to create to every sound that we heard and present that. Like it was like everything was a different task. One, they had us collaborate with the musicians in our conservatory and we did like a live performance with them. So it was nice because, like, again, even this idea of unattachment, we weren't trying to make our, like, life's work. We were just trying to make work. And, like, you make it, it exists, and then it goes away. And that's okay. Yeah.
Just like an essay you write in school. Like, you just write it and create it, and it doesn't have to stay with you.
Yeah.
You can let it go.
I think, too, it's like, my friend had this tattoo that said something about, like, you can't rely on inspiration, something like that, but it was prettier. And I always was like, what does that mean? And it's like in creation, you're not always inspired to create. Again, you're working for this choreographer and they give you that music that you're like, you know? And it's like, how do you keep creating even when you're not inspired? And it's like, once you learn that skill, it's like you can choreograph anything, you know? Because sometimes, again, like I'll choreograph something, I'm like, I know what I want to say. I know how I want to say it. And other times I'm like, okay, we're going to make some moves and see where it lands. And both those are valid.
That skill of you can't rely on inspiration to create, aside from choreography, again, jumping around in conversation, have you found that skill has served you in other areas of life?
Interesting. I think like the things that you learn as a dancer and a choreographer serve you in life so much. So like that's like a whole like 3-hour conversation.
Oh, dance training is life training.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe Tremaine, for that quote, because I will use it forever.
It's so real. It's so real in your work ethic, the way you approach things. Yeah. But I think, you know, a lot of times, like, we wait for okay, this is how I can connect this. So, like, inspiration is not reliable, but also, like, how reliable is, like, the things that we're, like, so determined to achieve all the time? So it's like, maybe I can compare this in the way that, like, if I feel really inspired as a choreographer, this is, like, my moment to finally feel good about what I'm making, you know? Whereas it's like, I have to hit this goal. This is the only time I'm gonna feel like I really did it. That's not the reality of it, you know? It's like every single part of that journey is your story. So it's like if we wait for that one moment that we have the aha moment in choreography or the one moment where we have the I did it, I made my goal that I reached that I set when I was 3, we're not going to live life or like experience the whole journey of it, which is like the whole point. I watched Soul, that movie. Have you
Oh,
watched?
yeah.
I watched on the plane back, and he finally gets the job that he wanted, and he's like, "This isn't how I thought it would feel." And that's when I was like, because that's so true. We live our life so much waiting for that one moment where we, like, feel like we checked off the box, but, like, life happens in the in-betweens, you know? So I feel like the idea of not waiting for inspiration to, like, appreciate or make something serves me in that way. It's like, try to live every day and, like, appreciate it and like love those moments and not just for like the big moment that you think is supposed to mean something. Cause like, who knows? Maybe you have like a stomach flu the day you finally made it and you feel like crap. And now you're just gonna feel like crap because you didn't appreciate anything on the journey. Like, you know, it's not worth it.
The stomach flu.
Not only thing I could think of.
It's true. It's true. Putting all your eggs in one basket and keeping that tunnel vision. Again, bringing back the whole wide perspective, that broader view of like still going for that thing or still appreciating getting there, but then also taking in the view on your road trip. Calling out the cows every time you see them, you know?
Yep.
Just like a typical road trip. You got to enjoy it, right? Have you ever been in a spot with DMD that you were feeling not inspired to create or ran into a tough, rough patch?
Yeah, I think, you know, owning a business is like constantly evolving and like where you want to take it is constantly evolving. I have very specific ideas of where I want to take DMD, but I also feel open to what naturally comes to it as well. So yeah, I feel like every time I like, let's say, level up the business, it comes from a period where I'm like, I don't know what the next thing is, you know? Because we started, once we got incorporated, just doing projects for film. And I would get the budget, the whole thing set aside to do like one project-based situation for the performers. And it's moving into a direction where I really want to make regular work for them, you know? So every single time that we get closer to that goal, I feel like I have a moment where I'm like, okay, what's next? And then it's like, lean on your people. I have a board of directors now that I work with that if I have those stuck moments, they like, give me insights. And it's like I think anytime you level up with anything in life, there's a moment of pause before. And then you like reevaluate, figure out what the plan is, and then move forward. So I feel like that's actually happened a couple times as I've moved it into what I want to move it into. And it's still not fully realized yet. So I'm sure I will continue to have moments where I need to lean on the people who have helped us get to where we are now.
And have you always out of pocket been able to fund all your projects for DMD?
So the way we do funding with DMD, I've contributed a lot, but the whole essence of why I created the company as a nonprofit is so that it can be its own entity, so that like it can receive donations. So because it's a 501c3, we can apply for grants. So we've been doing that, and then we can receive donations, and then we have training programs as well. So we've like kind of found our own way to be self-sustaining, which is great. So yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
How recent are your board of directors? Because I know you just mentioned that.
Yeah, they were brought in just a little under a year ago. So I want to say that we got everybody fully established in April.
Amazing. Was it difficult to find those people?
Not really, actually. It's funny. Like whenever you make spaces, I feel like the people who are meant to belong in those spaces naturally gravitate towards you. So it really happened organically, you know? It was like people who already were like invested and interested in the company and like want to see it grow, reached out to them, had beautiful conversations with them. They're like, yeah, like we want to see this thrive. So we're game. So it's been really, really nice because like before then I was doing everything pretty much by myself. My dad, shout out to dad, is the best. He's a finance guy. So he's helped me with finances and stuff, like figuring out how to, because, you know, like the bookkeeping of a company is a whole thing. Never did that before. So he's been really wonderful in that way. But it's been really nice being able to lean on other people now on the business side because I was just like figuring it all out as I went. I ran into a question, I'd Google it or I'd call my dad, you know? So it's been really, really nice having these people that I can lean on and also having someone being like, this is a good idea. Keep doing it, you know? It's nice having that affirmation.
A little encouragement. You're like, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Okay, keep going.
Like people don't think I'm crazy. Got it.
It makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because I recently talked to Fosse Lynn Bianco, and he asked me a question in the middle of the podcast, and he was like, do you believe that you're lucky? And so far, everything that like you've talked about has kind of brought that idea back into my head because I told him that I don't know if I believe that I'm lucky, but I believe that my preparation meets the opportunities. And he said that he liked that definition of luck. And the more I've like sat with that idea, the more I'm like, yeah, that is, I guess, a pretty valid definition of luck. But it sounds like everything that you've done so far has basically been that. Your preparation has met so many opportunities and has brought such a evolution to not only you, but to also DMD. And I'm sure the dancers and the artists that are involved in DMD, which is really refreshing to hear. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that definition of luck. I completely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. You like set yourself up with how you prepare with your work ethic and like how you walk into the room, you know? And it's like people like you are literally like an example of that, you know? It's like the first day I met you, I was like, I want to work with this person, you know? Because it's like the way you carry yourself, you know? Good energy meets good energy, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know they say opposites attract, but I think same sides create such more of a magnetic frequency too when you put them together. There's so much more energy there, and even from an outside perspective, looking at you and looking at DMD, even just in the time that I've seen it so far, it's amazing what it has attracted. And I'm sure that it's attracted things that's maybe surprised you.
Yes.
Like what?
I think mostly there's lots of things that have surprised me with DMD, but I think one thing that sticks out to me right now is just how it's evolved, you know, like I, again, am really interested in creating opportunities for dancers where they feel safe. And something that we just started was the Stage Ready series, which I'm really excited about because, like, honestly, for me as a performer, it's like, you know, sometimes I do good at auditions and sometimes I suck, you know, and it's okay. It's a moment and it happens. And I wish people could see me for my work ethic sometimes in those settings. And sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. So I've wanted to set up an opportunity where people can like take a class with people who they actually want to be in front of for work purposes and like get one-on-one feedback because like how often does that happen when you're in a group full of 200 people, you know? So that it's actually surprised me that I've started doing that because I thought DMD always was just going to be like things I wanted to create, but not just it's not just choreography anymore. It's like, no, I want to create spaces for people where they feel like they can succeed, you know, and also feel like they can succeed without the anxiety because I feel like sometimes, you know, like, especially when you're in a moment in your life where you need work, like those auditions can be like a lot, you know? So imagine getting in front of your dream person in a room full of 20 or 25 people and they can like tell you everything that they want you to work on and then like have your email at the end of it and you like get to hear from them, you know? So I think it surprised me a little bit that DMD has evolved that way because again, I always thought it was just going to be my choreography, but now it's like making spaces for other people to also do their work for dancers, you know? So that's one thing. And then I think too, I often am surprised by like this, it's kind of like imposter syndrome, like the wonderful people who I get to work with and that have like stuck with me, you know, because it's like Like, especially when we first started during the pandemic, I was new here. So I just moved here in December of 2019 and then the pandemic happened. I met a couple people, but not a lot. So most of it was like people who I like followed that I like thought were dope, like you're a really cool mover. And then when I decided I want to incorporate and do my first project during 2020, so find a way to do it during the pandemic, which was the whole thing. I reached out to those people. I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Like, will you work for me? And all of them said yes. And I still work with all of them to this day. So a lot of times I just have like surprise from that because I'm like, wow, I'm really in a room full of like incredible people who believe in this, So I think that that's like a cool pinch me moment sometimes, just being surrounded by really wonderful and also loyal people.
That's so cool. That's crazy to me because and all, like, obviously honesty. Like, I look at you as somebody who just like of course, a really cool mover. But my brain goes, well, yeah, why wouldn't you want to learn from Dani? Why wouldn't you want to be in a room with her? Like, why? To me, there's no other option, because you just are so cool, and you are all of that, and in a bag of chips and more. It's the family size bag, okay?
Yes, bag of chips.
Everything in a bag of chips, family size. That was the only analogy I could think of.
I love that. That just made my whole day.
So I like that has given you that like that moment of reflection, because it's also cool to hear that as, I don't know, just that's really cool for me to hear. Has there been anything else or anything at all really that you have learned from DMD that you never thought you were going to learn?
So this is like kind of like a funny, horrible story, but I think, again, unattachment seems to be a theme right now, but I think sometimes you can plan as much as you can possibly plan in the beginning, and then sometimes things just still go wrong and it's okay. And one of my projects in the very early stages, we did a film shoot out in the dry lake beds. I even had a backup location that was like 40 minutes away. It snowed in the desert, not only in our location, but the backup location. And it wasn't snowing anywhere else. And, like, again, I'm not drowning in money. So, like, I will pay them for every day that they show up. So, like, I kind of needed to film this first day, but I like looked at them and it was freezing outside. I'm like, no, we're not going to do this. I'm not going to put you through this situation. Like, we're going to find a backup day. I will find the money and you'll get paid for your time, So it was incredibly stressful for me. But with that being said, like, everybody was so happy to be there the second day and that they got taken care of, and like that someone didn't force them to go out and like freeze their butts up in the 2 snowing locations. So
on the one singular day it snows in Vegas a year.
It was actually insane. And like for me, it's really hard to like shut me down. I had to go sleep for like 15 hours after that first day because I was so emotionally exhausted. I'm like, I think I need a second before I solve this. So I slept and I woke up and I messaged everyone like, does this day work for you? But with that being said, it was like, it's okay when things don't work out exactly how you plan. And if you are respectful to other people, they will have grace for that, It wasn't like I was like, we're going to do this and I don't have the budget, so we're not going to do it. It's like, no, I figured out how to take care of them still. But it was like really hard for me to accept that something didn't go the way I planned. It's like, I worked so hard. How could this not work? Sometimes it just doesn't, and it's okay, Yeah, that was a hard day.
I can... Because again, how many days does it actually snow in Las Vegas?
In literally nowhere else.
Nowhere else but where you needed to be.
And it was like a hail, snow, wind storm. Like, it was the wild, wild west. I could not. I was not okay. I was emotionally wounded that day.
The universe literally said, let's put her non-attachment to the test.
Oh, my word. Another lesson, too, that I am still learning that's hard for me. I'm very empathetic, and it's really hard sometimes to be in leadership when you're empathetic. It also can be a superpower, but it's emotional battle. I'm a Cancer. And I have found that I'm really receptive to the energies in the room. So, like, again, that's why DMD is really nice because, like, people really want to be there and they're excited. But, like, say someone had, like, something personal happened, it's like I can see it and I can feel it. And if I'm on a job for something else where someone doesn't necessarily want to be in the room, it's hard for me to not focus on that and fixate on it when it's not about me. It's just something that, you know what I mean? So that's something that I have been learning about myself. It's like, how do I set up boundaries where I'm also safe as a choreographer? Because I feel like when you're a teacher or a choreographer, you give so much that that boundary is really transparent. So it's like also finding ways to take care of yourself when you're giving, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lesson I'm still learning and don't have great vocabulary to describe how to do it, but it's a thing, you know? It's like, I think it's also important for dancers to know that too. It's like people can feel your energy, and especially the teacher, because they're catering towards you, they're giving to you. So it's important to like be aware of how you walk into rooms, you know?
And as performers, we all have very big energy.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where we go, you walk into any room and I say we take the room or take attention. Sometimes we don't mean to. We're just, most of us are big personalities, and those are hard not to take a spotlight sometimes. And I understand it's hard to find that balance when you are giving so much and then you kind of let those energetic walls down
Mm-hmm.
and take in other people's thoughts and energies and feelings, because you also want to give them, like, I see you,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to become that
Yep.
because I actually had a good day.
Yes.
But I'm sorry. But also, you know, I get that. Through all of that, are there any resources that you have to continue to go back to or use in order to maybe remind yourself or like clear your energy or maybe have like that little bit of reset?
I think again the community that we have around us is really, really nice. So if I ever have like a moment where I'm seeking advice, I have a good inner circle that I can do that too. But something I also like to do respectfully, if it's someone that I'm like mentoring, if I can feel that there's something happening, like I want them to know that I'm a safe space. So normally I'll follow up and be like, hey, I'm here if you need anything. Just like offer that olive branch and not being invasive at all, just like so that they know, you know, because I think being a performer can be emotionally turbulent at times for so many reasons, you know? Financially, if it's a hot season where you have a bunch of gigs, if it's not and you don't have a lot of things going on, like, and then on top of that, we have like real personal lives as well, you know? So there's lots of flux that we go through. So I think it's really important for people to know that they can talk to someone about that. And also, like, if you are someone that someone is training with, they probably look up to you in some regard. And a lot of times when you look up to somebody, you don't know that they go through the same things that you go through. So, like, I think it's important to, like, be able to have those conversations, you know? It's like, as a performer, I've struggled with perfectionism, like, feeling like I have to be perfect all the time, you know? All of that fun stuff. I've had all of it also. So, yeah, I think that I have resources as an instructor to like help myself if I'm dealing with that, but also I want to be a resource in that way for people who train with me, you know, because dance is not just about dance, it's about how to survive as a dancer, you know, how to live as one. So, got to have those people who are willing to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to make a massive jump in topic because the thought came back into my brain. Because you mentioned about always kind of having a narrative base to your pieces. Has that always been important to you?
Yes. Yeah, I think I have done some pieces where I've tried to push myself out of my own box and like come at it from a different entry point. But for like the pieces that have like been substantial to me, yeah. I think the piece I toured before we were DMD, but we're DMD, you know, before we were incorporated, was about bombings. So pretty dark, but about like how we're like kind of destroying our world with fighting. So like that one was, you know, I did so much research on that one. So that was a whole thing. And then after that, another piece that I did was about perfectionism in dance. So very specific, like with a whole narrative. There was like a character you followed throughout the whole thing. And then, yeah, contain about the pandemic. The time being is just like a female empowerment piece, and also like feeling like it's interesting. Like that one was kind of inspired by feeling like your life is passing in front of you and you're not like experiencing it as well. So yeah, everything has like very specific visuals. Road of Riches is about losing connection in society because we're so focused on work. Yeah, I'm a narrative girl.
Why is telling a story important to you?
Because for me, that's what art is. So like, I want to connect with it and I want to get something out of it. And it doesn't mean for me that they have to know exactly what I'm saying, but I believe that whenever you're really honest with what you're trying to say, people will get the emotional story out of it. So like, I don't necessarily need someone to know, like, so in Road of Riches, like, Chris Barrero and Sarah Johnson have a duet, and like she's like a workaholic that doesn't like pay any attention to him, and you can like feel the emotion from him that he's like trying to get her to pay attention. And I don't necessarily need people to get that exact story, but I want them to feel his emotion in it, because like you're seeing this person try and try for this person's affections and like how it's affecting them, So I want people to feel when they watch my work.
And I think they do, by the way. I don't know if anybody's told you that, but I think they do. Could you maybe if you haven't had this experience, that's totally cool too. But has there ever been an experience where you really wanted type of narrative base and maybe what your brain wanted to create wasn't necessarily meeting up with that? Or has it always been?
For the most part, it's always happened at the right time. So I think this is interesting to think about, actually. So again, I'm very musically inspired as well. And there were like very specific pieces I knew I was going to make, and I knew what they were going to be about, but I didn't know when. And it was like when the time came to make it, I knew it was time. So like there is a piece that I made. It's a darker piece, but it was supposed to create conversation about how to protect kids in schools. And I knew I wanted to create to this song, and I did. It's literally, I think I get downloads. I believe in that. But I heard that song and I was like, I know I'm going to create to this. I don't know what. And I remember I was like riding in the passenger seat of someone's car and they had me on auxiliary and it played, and I literally just saw the whole thing. And I was like, I just got hit with something really dark, and I don't know when I'm going to make it, but it's gonna happen eventually. And I think I didn't make it until like 3.5 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wanted to do a lot of research on it. I wanted to talk to people about it to make sure I did it as mindfully as I possibly could have. But I think if I would have rushed the process, then I would experience that. But sometimes I'm like, I have this idea, but it's not time, And I think too, what I have to create the fastest for normally is for the concept video intensives. And I actually use that as a way to push myself a lot to create in different ways. So I don't think I run into that problem because normally I'm not doing like more of a humanitarian project with that. It's like an exploration of a thought, I hope all of that made sense.
It does. And I know, like, I feel like I've asked really oddly specific questions.
I love it.
But I find it incredible how different artists and different creatives' brains work. And these are the questions that I'm like, how? But why? Has this ever happened to you? Because this happens to me.
Yeah.
Like finding that whenever I have created something, it's just like, sometimes I go through that, and I love learning how different people work through it and how it's affected other people. And even if anybody's listening who even isn't in the world but is still working on something creatively or coming up with something new or trying something new, and we all run through these spots of creativity. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be art. It can still be at your job, or it can still be in your own niche and in your own world.
Yeah.
Because the creation process is mostly all the same no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for answering all my crazy specific questions.
Yeah. That actually just made me think of something too. Like different creatives have such different processes too, which is like really interesting, like you'll get in a room with someone that really doesn't want to like choreograph before. They want to choreograph on the bodies and see what they can make. And like Palabolists, they literally improvise for days and record it to like make their rep. And they're like, oh, that was a cool moment that we did at 2:00 this day. Let's like put this in our piece, So it's really interesting how people cultivate their creativity. I think I'm a little bit more analytical with how I do my creativity, which is interesting to think about. But like, so I'll have my song and I will like script out what I hear in the song, and then I'll like assign that to thoughts and then lab the thought. So yeah, very, very specific.
And it's amazing because you can tell in your choreography, you always have there's always a direction. There's never an unknown, and it's even funny to hear you talk for the last like almost hour about it all because you are so analytical and that works well for you. Because I'm about to interview David Mayorga and I'm so excited too because he, to me, I feel like and I don't know, and I'm so sorry, David, if this is wrong, but he is just I just watch music pour out of that man in the most insane ways, and I feel like he just does it. So it's so amazing, and I'm so excited to talk to him about his process and hear his process versus hearing yours where you're like, this is what I want, and this is it's really cool.
It's like mathematics.
It is, and it's amazing to hear that it works so well both ways, right? I always say that there's not just the yellow brick road to the city of Oz.
Absolutely.
There's other roads, but we only heard about the yellow one because that was the one Dorothy took.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing and it's refreshing, and I love it.
Yeah. It's cool too, like working as a dancer while choreographing too and being a part of different people's like process, because like it inspires me too to push myself in different ways as well, because again, like we get stuck in boxes sometimes, so it's like if I feel like I am not like living the potential of this work that I want to, like how can I push my brain to think in a different way? Maybe I do come into a rehearsal and I lab on specific people, like for partnering. I love to do that. So I'll have like an objective in my head, but I did this on a duet on Courtney and Adam. I was like, what happens when you put your right foot into his like left shoulder? And they play with that. I'm like, okay, now do that on one hand, and then I can make something new. Because sometimes for me partnering, I'll do the same thing I've seen instead of invent, so it's just interesting. Yeah, the processes are so interesting.
And I love that you have people that are just willing to do it.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But this is now leading me into another question.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're very good at it, and it's always been a topic that I've been so curious about. Finding the balance when you are working with maybe dancers in the same job or in the same group, but also being able to be that leader and having that balance of authority, but also, we're on this, like, yes, you're on the same team when you're in an authority position, but it's different when you're in that authority position and also working with them on the same job.
Yep. This is an interesting one. This is something that I have to watch myself with sometimes emotionally, because when you start being someone that like hires people or does like choreography or whatever, people start to like hold you in a different way, even though you're still a human. So it's like sometimes I'll go into a class and I'll be afraid to mess up because of that. So it's like, I'm like, oh, these people can't see me mess up because then they're going to lose faith in me. It's not that deep. It's not that deep, Dani. Everybody messes up, I'm going to forget an 8 count. For the Awakening audition, I forgot an 8 count and I got on my chest and I started doing contortion runarounds with my feet. So, you know what I mean? And it's okay. I blacked out and then I started becoming a spider on the floor, and it's okay.
I love your natural instinct.
I'm like, I must contort. But I think in that moment, I wasn't upset about messing up for the audition. I was upset about messing up in front of people who think of me a certain way. And it took me a while to understand that. So I think it's like just always being okay with like the fact that you're human still, and you will mess up in a dance class for the rest of your life, and it's okay. And that doesn't make you less of a leader. It doesn't make you less of a choreographer or even less of a dancer. So that is something that I actually have had to battle with myself a little bit, and just like constantly check myself so that I don't put that much pressure on myself when I'm just trying to like train or sweat for a day, And then I think that being a good person solves all of the problems you could ever have. So it's like I can be in a cast and I don't have to be like the leader, but if I'm someone that people trust and like no, I'm going to bring good energy into a room, then it still holds true for both positions, you know? Whereas if I come in late to a rehearsal and I'm in a bad mood and I'm like talking crap about people, I can't even imagine ever behaving that way. But like if I were to do that, then no one would want to work for me here either, you know? So I think it's just like holding yourself to a standard of being a good person, which I think everybody should do all the time anyway, you know?
Oh, yeah. I agree. And if you're not, everybody take that. It's good advice. Be a good person.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get booked when you're not being a good person, you know, because people want to work with people who are kind and make it fun.
People want to work with people they enjoy being around, right?
Yep.
Of course. Birds of a feather flock together, right?
Boom. You're full of all of the zesty quotes today. I love it.
I love quotes.
I love it.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I have any other, like, specific questions, but I am going to ask, what is your funniest moment as a performer?
Oh, goodness. I have 2 interesting fails. One, I think, is hard for me to describe, so hopefully I'll say it in a way that's funny. Whenever I first joined Diablo, so I'm like spring chicken, you know, they don't put you into a full track right away. They'll like, unless like they need to, but I was like the 6th of 6 girls. So like I was just there to like fill in, and they will basically give you the passes that they don't want to do that day, or like if they're like injured, they don't want to do like a certain impactful move that could like hurt them or something. And there was one move that's pretty body impactful. They have these stairs that you do log rolls down, so you just like pound your body on each staircase. Gosh. And I took that for a couple people my first leg of tour before I trained other things. And we were performing at the Kennedy Center in DC, which is like a beautiful theater, but it's really close to my conservatory. So everyone from my conservatory came to this show, like every single person. And the only pass I had in the entire thing was the log rolls down the stairs. And I missed a stair. So I did one thing in this show. I missed a stair. I pounded my body on the other one, fell on the floor, and I got up and tried to play it off. And my friend at the time, she was like, at the end of the show, she goes, "Hey, were you supposed to fall down the stair like that?" I was like, no. So everyone watched me just destroy my body on the staircase, and that's all I had to show for. So that's one. The other one's a little better. So my job before that, I worked at Cedar Point, and we did this like luminosity show. It was 30 minutes, and the audience is very close to you. So like they can see if something is wrong. And there was this partnering moment. It wasn't actually like lifting partnering. We were just like doing consecutive punches, but like close to our partner. And it was probably my fault. I was probably in the wrong spot, but my partner punched me in the face beginning of the 30-minute show. I stayed on. I started to taste iron in my mouth, but I like didn't think anything of it. And then by the end of the 30 minutes, I looked at my partner in like the last number of the show, and I smiled at him, and he was like, "Ah!" My mouth was just like red, just like blood all over my mouth. And these people definitely saw it because they were like right next to us. So I performed all 30 minutes looking like Dracula. So yeah.
Those audience members will never forget.
Terrifying.
Did you know this was a Halloween show?
Like oozing out of my mouth. Like,
oh,
yeah.
And no one else on stage saw it?
And he was the only person I partnered with.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
That's good.
So there were 2.
This is honestly the favorite part of my show.
Yeah.
Of the show. I love hearing it.
Performance fails are really good.
I think over the summer, I'm going to take prompts of everybody's like craziest performing stories and just do an episode and share them all.
Incredible.
And I'm going to try not to cry laughing the whole time because it's so good. They're so good.
Just classics. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's my favorite is the funny things like rolling downstairs. Like you had people come to see you in a show where you just rolled downstairs.
And it was like painful. Like the drop of a stair is like this. So it's like your shoulder. Beautiful piece. It's a beautiful piece. But yeah, I messed up the 5 seconds I was on stage. Yep.
Ooh, okay, I'm composed, I promise. Okay. So again, a little bit of a flip. So where Do you have any plans for DMD currently that you can share?
But there are some things that I cannot share, but
Mhm.
I can share that we are working to have a more regularly occurring live situation happening. So I've been working really closely with the board. We've been applying for things. So that is the goal. So yeah, that's what I can share. I want to bring contemporary arts more to the forefront of the Las Vegas scene. So we have so many beautiful contemporary dancers here, but there isn't many live performance jobs where you can showcase that, you know? And with that, it limits the amount of training because people want to train for what they think they can book. So if there's no contemporary shows, like people come because they want to feed their soul, but they're not necessarily coming because they want to work in it because they don't see how that would work, you know? So I'm really, really trying to make spaces where contemporary arts is like viable here and viable from the strip, like because the strip only sees certain types of art forms as viable at this time. Like there's contemporary arts around, but not like on the strip with like PR and like advertising behind it, you know? So I want to find a way to make contemporary dance viable in that way. And I want to do it through DMD. So we are working very, very hard to try to make that a reality.
Well, that's so exciting. And I love that. Has that been a dream for a long time? Or do you think you got that dream because you started DMD?
I think I got that dream because I started DMD and I've worked with so many dancers in the city now who love contemporary, but are like, I can't work in it, you know? So the first step is to make the space, you know? So trying to make the space. And I could do that as a choreographer on somebody else's project. Like I've brought contemporary into other spaces, but I also want it to be something that moves the audience emotionally, you know? So it's like, how can I create this space that doesn't exist in Vegas and get people to come and like have like life-changing experiences by watching the dance? So that's what makes it a little bit harder is we're trying to do it from scratch instead of like jumping onto somebody else's project. But yeah.
I think it'll be 100% worth it in the end, and that's probably something you already know. But in I have to make a small observation that I think everybody has gifts and talents, and I think from talking to you, your probably biggest gift and talent is creating space for people. And I think not just for dancers, but for everybody that you come across and everybody that you know. And that is that's so cool because the more space you have in your garden, the more flowers can grow.
Quote. Another quote.
Another. Yeah, I love quotes.
So good. They're so good.
Thanks. But and then the bigger the flowers can get too, you know, and we need people like you in the world and in this city, and every single person that you've met and you've connected with, I'm sure, again, would bet all of my small money on it. That would probably say the same thing. So I applaud you 10 million times over for going through that fight, because I know it's going to be a long one. I don't want to say fight, but going through that journey. It's okay, yeah, it's a fight. Because, you know, not everybody can do it, which is why you're doing it, you know? And that's just so admirable, because it's so easy to look at that kind of task and be like, no, I can't do it. No, that's too much, you know, and run away from it. But it sounds like you're running towards it.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, same with you, you know, like what you're creating here is so wonderful, like a space for artists to share because, again, like I feel like a lot of times we don't get to hear the insides of what people are actually like doing and working on and also going through, you know? So I think the more spaces we have for artists to talk and to thrive and to bring their work out, the better, especially in Vegas. Especially in Vegas. There's so much here.
There's so much here, and there's so many amazing people. Amazing people and amazing experiences and stories in this city. It's wild.
Yes. Like wild. The community is so beautiful here.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. That's like I'm still based here, but I'm in and out right now because of tour. And that's like what I miss the most is like the humans that I've cultivated here, which I never thought I was going to live in Vegas full time, So it's like, again, the journey, you never know where it's going to take you. But because of just working towards that goal, it brought me the best people in this city, best community. Yeah. I'm sure other communities are great. I'm not saying that comparatively, but I've had a wonderful experience here.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
I love it here. And I mean, I haven't had too much experience living in other places. I've visited in other places, and just listening and picking up what I've heard from people who have, it feels as though Vegas is a place like no other because of that, because of that community. So thank you, universe, for bringing me here.
Yes, absolutely.
So lastly, where can people follow you and follow DMD? Where would be best?
So as a human, I have one called Dani Maloney. It's just that. And then for our dance company, Centric is Dani Maloney Dance. We also have a website, DaniMaloneyDance.com. I have my own website, Dani Maloney. I just said my name so many times. My email is DaniMaloneyDance@gmail.com. The name I didn't choose, also, not like my personal name, but DMD. It just happened. That's something I do have to say. In hindsight, I wish I made something interesting, looked up a rock and found a cool name for it and then named my dance company that, but it's my name. And now it's forever my name.
True. But also, people won't question who created it. Who's the choreographer? It's Dani Maloney.
I'm trying to get more people just to call it DMD. That's just a lot of my name, and that stresses me out. So yeah, if y'all can all call it DMD from now on, that'd be great.
Public service announcement. Oh, that's good. Well, thank you so much, Dani. I absolutely adore you and adored the time that you shared with me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. You're incredible. I love that you're doing this. So honored to be here.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Before the Curtain. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is you listen to the podcast. We love to hear your virtual round of applause. If you know of a production or artist that deserves to have their story told, send us an email or message us on Instagram by clicking the link in the description.